There we are. So we are picking up again God as mother. In the Vedanta, you can choose whether or not to relate to God as mother or father or sibling or lover or friend. Uh, it's based on your disposition, how you think, and God will manifest to you as your highest ideal of love when when that beautiful occasion comes to pass. And so there's a beauty in that God comes to you for her definition and is not going to impose one because God is the container of all attributes. He's the container of all colors. And so he'll be your favorite or she'll be your favorite color. So we're on chapter 6 of Sri Sharada Devi and her divine play. This chapter is called With Ramakrishna in Dakshineshwar. And the beginning intro statement says, those who install the auspicious Lord in their hearts always enjoy festivity and attain prosperity and blessedness. So those who put the auspicious Lord in their hearts, we talk about that all the time. It's interesting. It's an interesting way of looking at it, that those who put the Lord in their heart, I think it's more those who recognize that the Lord is in the heart. I don't think we get a choice about putting her there. She's there. We get a choice of whether we recognize it and honor it or not. But those who install, and maybe that's what installation means. Installation is because they install the image, but until they do a certain ceremony, that image isn't fully installed. And so perhaps the recognition and the worship and the honoring is the installation. In their hearts, always, there's another strong word, always enjoy festivity, right? And so that festivity would have to be in the heart. So that's a wonderful idea to play with. There's a lot of opportunity for building a practice around manifesting festivity in the heart, to have a little, I don't know, make up excuses to throw a little party in the shrine, make up excuses to, pour the Divine Mother a glass of eggnog and some popcorn and go in and play some seasonal music and dance with Mother. This is the relationship of love. This is what happens when love starts to rule the heart. So those who install the auspicious Lord in their hearts always enjoy festivity and attain prosperity. Indeed, the prosperity they're talking about here is very interesting. I actually learned about it in a very I love sharing these things that are so inappropriate to share, but I learned about prosperity in a men's room in Hawaii. Because there was a plaque right above the urinal in the men's room, and I was standing there. Since I had nothing else to do, I read the plaque, and it said there are two ways to become rich in life: earn more or desire less. And I thought about that, and I thought about that, and I still think about that it's desire that causes poverty. It's desire, which comes from the assumption that you don't have enough. And of course, there are times where the body doesn't have enough or the mind doesn't have enough. But here he says that we will always enjoy festivity and attain prosperity, which means we'll find our contentment. Because the Holy Mother says there is no higher treasure than contentment. So prosperity in spiritual terms is a code word for contentment. For attain prosperity and blessedness. And blessedness is that relationship. Blessedness is solely defined by your relationship with the divine, with the moment. If you can find the moment perfect, if you can pull yourself out of the struggles of mind in the moment and sit before the divine, that is blessedness. If that's grace, if Mother has given you the ability to step out of your karma, if she's given you the strength of mind to give yourself permission to be free of your karma for a moment, that's blessedness. And to sit in the divine presence, free of karma, free of doubt and all of the external things that happen in the noisy mind. That's blessedness. So those who install the auspicious Lord in their hearts always enjoy festivity, attain prosperity, and blessedness. So let's do that first part. Let's install the divine in the heart. Holy Mother first came to Dakshineshwar in March of 1872, when she was 18 years, 3 months old. Huh. That's interesting. Usually with adults, you don't give the months. So she's 18 years, 3 months old, and lived with the master off and on for approximately 8 years in Dakshineshwar and 9 months in Shyampukur and Kasipur. She considered her time living with the master in Dakshineshwar to be the glorious period of her life. She later joyfully recalled, "Those were my blissful days. The master put a picture of bliss in my heart." Indeed. Austerities in the Nahabat. There's a picture of the Nahabat here. See it in the book. It's a very small little place. Thakur's mother, I believe, lived upstairs. Sri Sharda lived downstairs there. And it's a small room. If you lay across it, pretty much your feet will touch one side and your head will touch the other. And there's a staircase that kind of wraps up and goes to the upstairs. And it was meant to be, a Nahabat, I think, is for musical performance for the temple. And so Mother was living in there. And it's not that far. It's just across a small courtyard from Thakur's room. And so they were never very far from each other. And there used to be the screen just outside that she used to stand behind to kind of peek into his room and to hear his teaching. And there's a little hole in the screen that she did that for. And that was for her own modesty, for her own comfort. She was very shy around groups of people. And so she would stand there and listen to the master with that jug full of bliss sitting in her heart. Austerities in the Nahabat. Whenever we think of Holy Mother's hardships in the Nahabat, we cannot control our tears. Chapter 5 described the Nahabat where Holy Mother lived in Dakshineshwar. This 2-story brick structure still stands. It is about 75 feet north of Ramakrishna's room on the bank of the Ganges. The upper level of the Nahabat commands a panoramic view of the sacred river, the temple complex, and the flower gardens. Holy Mother lived on the ground floor in a tiny octagonal room that is about 50 square feet. So here in the footnote, they have a detailed description of it if you haven't been there. It's quite amazing to see all these things. Actually, I've gone several times to see all these things. And I'm always so disappointed at how small my mind is. To sit there and to think that the incarnation of the age sat on that bed and taught, your mind just can't comprehend it. It just sits there and tries. It is quite fascinating to see everything that you've read about, to see things all lined up, to see the Kali temple, the Shiva temple, the Krishna temple, the Ganges, and to be familiar with all the places that Mother and Thakur played their play. But I always want to know, to have my mind fully accept that God has been here and God has played his play here. And I always find, it's I don't know. I just can't quite get my head to wrap around it, to quite understand that this actually happened, that these stories that I've been reading for the last 25 years and these magnificent souls and their otherworldly lives, their incredible insights and the love that they had that still is echoing through the order and through the devotees, here well over 100 years later, is something that still escapes me when I sit there and try to open to that realization. So the following is a detailed description of the Nahabat as it was in Holy Mother's time by Swami Gambhirananda in his biography of the Holy Mother. The room downstairs where the Holy Mother lived is an octagonal room in shape, each wall measuring 3 feet 3 inches in width. The distance between the walls across the floor is 7 feet and 9 inches. The floor area is a little less than 50 square feet. The only opening door to the southern side is 4 feet 2 inches by 2 feet 2 inches. There are 2 vents. There is another door in the southeast corner of the veranda for the kitchen. The width of the veranda is 4 feet and 3 inches. The height of the room is 9 feet and 3 inches. Probably later, the vents were sealed up and the 2 doors were added, one on the north and one on the west. Right, so you could lay down comfortably in there, even 2 people. But when you put all of your stuff in there for cooking for the devotees and all your pots and pans and extra sari and all that stuff, it gets pretty tight in there, I imagine. All around the room is a narrow veranda, about 4 feet wide, with 2 doors leading into the room. The room has 2 vents, but no windows. For the sake of privacy, the veranda was surrounded by plated bamboo screens, which offered privacy but blocked sunlight and fresh air. In the northeast corner of the veranda is a staircase leading upstairs. Under the stairs in the southeast corner, there is a low space that Holy Mother used for cooking. That tiny room in the Nahabat was her bedroom, her living room, her shrine, her workplace, and her storage room. It also served as a guest room where Ramakrishna's niece Lakshmi and the women devotees visiting from Calcutta would stay at night. After the master's passing away, the Holy Mother reminisced about her days in the Nahabat. You know, it's interesting. Here's Greg, just a moment. And here we go. All right. Hello, Greg, if you're there already.
Hi.
So, it's interesting that when, well, not always, in Krishna, Krishna certainly ended up living in a hut in the woods for a long time. Jesus was born into a little stable to very poor parents. Buddha renounced a whole kingdom and wandered as a monk. Sri Ramakrishna, lived in a single room at the temple, Holy Mother in the Nahabat. So you look, God is very modest. When she comes for a visit, she doesn't demand a lot of space or whatnot. And this is a great practice for us. It's especially in this country, and not just this country, I think anywhere, it's easy to accumulate. Things just sort of gather and build up. And, that's one of the nice things in the monastery is not having anything that's yours. Technically, I remember that first night that I moved into the monastery, I went up and I was shown my room, and it was actually, I was sharing it actually with Swami Vedananda. And so he had one of those giant old style metal desks. I think it was made out of wood though, but one of those big giant old industrial ones from the 50s, taking up a good 20% of the room. And then I had mine on my side, and there was a bookshelf that was already filled with books, and the bed was already made with somebody else's sheets and somebody else's pillow, and there were already somebody else's pictures on the wall. And to move in there, as quote, my room, I fell asleep that night crying, actually, not out of sadness, but just a little bit out of the horrendous adjustment that my mind was going through of what it meant to have given up everything, it sounds so overly dramatic from this side of the decision, that I gave up I gave up everything. And I thought that was such a big deal. And the next morning when I woke up in that room, I realized I was still fully me. There was no difference in me at all. And yet I had left, thousands of dollars of things behind. All of my enjoyments and my big apartment and all that stuff gone. And I saw that in truth, there was nothing, that I was I was still so entirely still myself, sleeping in a room with nothing that was my own. And moving here to Colorado and renting this room, it's been a constant struggle, not in discomfort at all. I'm not talking like that at all. I've got way beyond what I need, even here. But the mind is a nut. The mind is constantly looking for things. I just constantly looking for things. It just can't stand being content with what's here. And it's because it seems like it's made a purpose for itself out of accumulation. And I'm surprised. Actually, the reason I'm sharing all this stuff is just to share some surprise that I find in the way that the mind works. That I can't tell you the number of times in a day where out of nowhere the mind comes up with something that I have to go get. Like, oh, you should get a bicycle. And so then I start thinking about, well, what kind of bicycle should I get? It's like, oh, well, you should get an electric bicycle. Well, why should I get an electric bicycle? Well, then you could travel to like Boulder and back, to get your stuff instead of busing. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to spend $2,000 on getting an electric bicycle, surely I should just get a scooter. Well, a scooter in the winter is going to be awfully cold. There's no protection. You should get a small car, just a small one. That would be fine. That would be really good. Get a small car. And then you start thinking about what that implies. It's like, well, I'd have to put gas in that car. And that would be quite expensive, especially if I started driving to Boulder. And then, oh my gosh, there's insurance for that. Oh my Lord, I'd have to open another Patreon account to own a car, a GoFundMe account. And it goes on like that, like the house down the street, the basement apartment is vacant. And I walked by and I saw the guy moving out. And immediately my mind was like, oh, I bet that's a nice apartment. I wonder what that's going to go for every month. Maybe I could move up here into this place. It'd be a little bit bigger. I'd have a bedroom, a kitchen. It'd be great. And it's just constant. The mind is just like that all the time. And I was, in the monastery, it's not so much like that, because the monastery, you're not spending money for things. Everything is provided, and it's provided as it's provided. You're not. It never even occurs to you to go ask the head swami for a bigger room. I'd like my own bedroom, please, my own bathroom, please. And a car for me. That would be nice. Just a car for me. It's not on the sign out sheet. It just wouldn't happen. And so it's surprising to me how the mind, even after 25 years in a monastery, is still just a clutchy little baby being pushed on a wheel cart through the grocery store, grabbing everything colorful off the shelves. Yeah, I want that. Yeah, I need that. Yeah, we definitely need two of those, as you go through. And so I'm saying this to share that with us, is that we really should step into that battle about keeping our lives simple. Don't let this world get you to move into it to the point that it's difficult to move out. You're I often think of that when these poor refugees, are run out of their towns and out of their homes. You see them walking on the road, pushing a cart. Or I was like, how do you decide what to take? And is any of it necessary? Is any of it necessary? And so keep life simple, because there's freedom in simplicity. If you don't have all those things that are taking your monthly bills, that are costing you things on a monthly schedule, then you don't require the level of hard work and overtime and high paying jobs that we go for, that bring with them lots of responsibility and sometimes stress and anxiety. If you keep it simple, you just need a very small amount of money to survive. And it's in this country, it's quite easy to make a small amount of money. It's getting easier to make smaller amounts. But it gets quite easy, and life will take off quite a level of mental noise for you. A number of things that you won't have to worry about, that you won't have to struggle for. And so if it's possible, try to take up less space every year in the world. Try to own fewer things every year, kind of like Walmart. They demand that all of their suppliers lower their price every year. And so you do the same of the world. Make sure it lowers. Your staying here gets its price lowered every year. Because none of it's necessary. And you'll find that as you get rid of these things, you'll be surprised that you're still capable of joy. You're still capable of love. You're still capable of loving people and growing in your spiritual life and being full, being content. So, it's not by accident that when God comes, she's a very non-intrusive guest in this world, demanding very little for herself. Mother says, I used to live in the Nahabat. Oh, how much hardship I had to go through to live in that tiny room. I had to store all my belongings and groceries in it. From the ceiling hung a pot in a sling containing live fish used for the master's meals. They splashed in the water all night. The master had a weak stomach. He could not digest the oily and spicy food offered to Mother Kali. So in the Nahabat, I cooked for him and for the devotees. Surendra Mitra provided 10 rupees every month for household expenses, and Senor Gopal would buy the groceries. I had to make chapatis from 6 or 8 pounds of flour. The master brought Latu, who worked for Ram Datta, and said, this boy is good. He will help you knead the dough. Ram Datta came by carriage and said, today I shall eat chana dal and chapati. No sooner had I heard this than I started cooking. When Rakal stayed with the master, I often cooked khichdi for him. I spent many hours cooking. Sometimes I lived alone in the Nahabat, and from time to time Lakshmi, Yogan, Golap, Gordasi, and others would stay with me. I used to bathe at 4 o'clock in the morning. When there was a little sunshine on the steps in the afternoon, I would dry my hair. I then had very thick hair. The fisherwomen were my companions. When they came to bathe in the Ganges, they kept their baskets on the veranda of the Nahabat and went down for their dip. They would tell me stories, many stories, and then collect their baskets and leave. At night, I used to hear the fishermen sing as they caught fish in the Ganges. Many devotees came to the master, and there was continuous singing, dancing, kirtan, pava, and samadhi in his room. I made a hole in the bamboo screen and stood behind it to watch what was going on in the master's room. Because I stood for long periods of time, I developed rheumatism. While listening to the kirtan, I thought that if I were a devotee, I would stay with the master and listen to him speak. So you just see how she spent her whole time in there, in that little tiny room, cooking for all of the devotees. All the devotee had to do was just walk by and literally yell out what he was going to have. I'm going to have dal and 10 chapatis tonight. And mother, as soon as she heard it, would begin preparing that dal and chapatis. And, in this mart of bliss that she was living, of this worship, it wasn't because she was stuck in the role that she didn't have a choice about these things. It's that this is how God serves the world. He cooks for those who want food, and he teaches those who want to be taught, and he hugs those who need a hug and cares for those who need care. And there's a lot of beauty in it. So in the suffering of the mother, we can read it from that perspective of like, oh, this poor woman, look how hard she had to do with all this. There is a certain amount there. But really, look at the story of love that's happening here. Look at her dedication to her relationship with Thakur. Look at her love for the devotees that came to spend time to hear these spiritual things. And look at her willing to stand there for hours at a time to the point that she got rheumatism in her legs. I mean, what a beautiful notion. As soon as my rear starts hurting on the chair when I'm meditating, I'm sitting there complaining, and I'm going to get up within 10 minutes of that pain starting. It's like, and here, mother, the pain was nothing. She would much rather sit and listen to these words of the divine. than to worry about comfort for herself. And so it's just an amazing discipline that is quite easily overlooked in what she's doing. Another painful aspect of Holy Mother's life in the Nahabat comes to mind. There were no bathing or toilet facilities in the Nahabat. Moreover, in the temple garden was a public place that offered very little privacy. Holy Mother was so modest that she kept herself veiled to hide her face from people she did not know. During the dark hours of the morning, she would go to the jungle on the bank of the Ganges to answer the call of nature, and then would bathe in the Ganges. Later, she recalled her sad plight. I suffered terribly by suppressing the urge to answer the call of nature and thus developed intestinal problems. If I felt the urge during the day, I controlled it until evening and prayed to the Lord to spare me embarrassment. Only during the dark hours of night could I go out. What discomfort! Later, Yoganma, a woman devotee of the Master, realized Holy Mother's predicament and arranged to have an outhouse built near the Nahabat. Holy Mother recalled. One day the Master said to Hriday, you see, I was a little anxious about her. She is a village girl and not accustomed to living in this place where there is no toilet. I would be embarrassed if someone saw her going to ease herself in the bushes and made a comment. But she is so discreet that no one knows when she goes to answer the call of nature. Even I have never seen her. I was anxious when I heard this and thought, my goodness, the Divine Mother shows him whatever he wants. Now, if I go to the bushes, he may see me. I then earnestly prayed to the Divine Mother, oh, Mother, please protect my modesty. My loving mother always shielded me as if with her wings. I stayed in Dakshineshwar so many years, but no one saw my private affairs. So this is modesty to the extreme here. Pretty amazing. The price that she paid for modesty. It shows you how important immodesty was to her. She actually makes a statement that the power of a woman lies in her modesty, which is an interesting statement that I don't really have the means to unpack, but I share it for you to unpack, for you to run that through your head through and see what that does, what it feels like. Regarding her natural shyness and modest habits, the manager of the temple garden once remarked, yes, we've heard about her living here, but we have never seen her. Wow. Lakshmi's eyewitness account helps us to visualize Holy Mother's daily life in the Nahabat. At Dakshineshwar, we stayed in the Nahabat. When the Master wished to indicate the Mother to his visitors, he would make a circle with his finger at the tip of his nose. This was because the Mother wore a nose ring. He used to refer to the Nahabat as a cage and to us as Shukshari, which means she, referring to two birds in Indian folklore that love to proclaim Krishna's glories. When fruits and sweets had been offered to the Divine Mother, they were brought to the Master. He would remind Brother Ramlal, don't forget there are two birds in that cage. Give them some fruits and peas. Newcomers would take the Master's words literally. Even Master Mahashai did so at first. Village women would come to visit the Mother, and sometimes the Master overheard their conversations. Once he said to the Mother, these women come and stroll by the goose pond. When they see me, they talk among themselves, and I hear what they are saying. They say, this man is good, but one thing is strange. He does not sleep with his wife at night. Please don't pay any attention to their talk. They are worldly women. They may convince you to use tricks or medicine to divert my mind toward the world. Please don't follow their advice. I have given myself completely to God. The Mother was embarrassed and reassured the Master. Oh, no. I won't pay any attention to them. How we managed in that tiny room of the Nahabat, I sometimes wonder. It was the Master's divine play. Usually it was shared by Holy Mother, another girl, and me. Sometimes Golab Ma, who was a large woman, or other women devotees from Calcutta, also stayed with us. Moreover, we had to store our groceries and cooking vessels, the dishes, and even the water jar in that room. Since the Master had a weak stomach, we also stored the food for his special diet. The Master did not sleep much at night. When it was still dark outside, he would move around the temple garden, and while passing near the Nabat, he called, "O Lakshmi, O Lakshmi, get up. Ask your aunt to get up also. How long will you sleep? It is almost dawn. The crows and cuckoos are about to sing. Chant the name of the Divine Mother." Sometimes in the winter, when the master called for me, Mother, lying under her quilt, would whisper, "Keep quiet. He has no sleep in his eyes. It's not the right time to get up, and the birds have not yet started singing. Don't respond." But if the master didn't get a response, he would pour water under the door sill. And since we slept on the floor, we had to get up without delay. Even so, sometimes our beds got wet. All right. I'm not a marriage counselor. What do I know? But but there's two things there. One, that's the reason I'm the devotee of the mother. She's the one arguing for staying in bed longer in the morning, and I can't say that's not part of my ideal. And but then I'm also a devotee of the master because he'll pour water under the door to, break me of my my bad habits. And so you see the way they played together, the way they worked together. Just I love Mother's little sense of mischief with when she's with the master. When he told her how much milk to make for him when he was feeling sick, and she would boil it down so that she could give him more milk than what he was asking for. And he would scold her, or when he would try and tell her how to cook for the devotees, and she would tell him, "That's my business. That's not your business." Just a marvelous, marvelous woman, and a marvelous relationship to see the two manifestations of God dancing and playing with each other in this way, really for not just our enjoyment. Certainly there's a lot of enjoyment to come from reading about their lives, but also just the depth of purity in their lives. They needed nothing. They had almost nothing in this world. And yet Mother would describe her time with Thakur as being the most blissful of her entire life. That every time she was at Dakshineshwar with them, she had that picture of bliss sitting inside. And so this is why they danced. This is why they lived, to give us that vision, to give us that ideal. Because without them, where would we see this? If they hadn't lived these kinds of lives, where would we come up with these ideas? Where would we have known where these truths were? We would have been so lost in this life, just on a treadmill of meaninglessness, wondering what it was all about. And yet, because of them, because of this mercy, this grace, we have an ideal, a beautiful ideal. And we can see it in action and understand how it works and what it looks like. And from that, we figure out what's important in this life. And if we pay attention, meaning we don't let ourselves slip into those ignorant states where we're ignoring what we know, where we're ignoring our inspirations inside to make room for smallness or vices that we have. If we can fight those, this is how we see that bliss. This is how we return to our authentic self and get away from this distraction, this delusion. The master lost some hair from the front of his head because of excessive heat in his body, and some of his hair and beard turned gray. He did not care to live long, to be an old man. He would say, "I don't want to hear people saying that there is an old monk in Rasmati's temple garden." I love that. I love that he just said that because I make a lot of statements about growing old in front of you, mostly because I have to sit here and look at a giant screen of my face looking back at me, and every time I'm sitting here, I'm like, oh my God, what color is that? But anyway, these these things, that the master, it's just, he saw them too. He experienced it too. And but you can read from it. You can feel as the words are read, that there's not a reality to it, that it's a joke, that it's a funny thing, he knew full well that he wasn't growing old and that he had never grown old. And so knowing that when he would say something like this, you would hear the playfulness in it, and for us, it's the same. You're never going to grow old. You're going to watch a body grow old. You might feel it, a body grow old, but that's the secret. In the New Testament, it says that the wages of sin are death, but the wages of virtue are immortality and life. And I remember reading that when I was like 8 years old. I was reading that and I was like, the wages of sin are death. Well, everybody dies. What's the point of being a good person? If everybody's going to get the punishment of sinfulness, everybody's going to die. What's the point of all of this? And it's taken me many years to unlock an understanding of that. Is that this ideas of sin, this idea of doing wrong, or this idea of wrong thinking, it all belongs to karma. It all belongs in the mind, and it's all generated in the mind. And to know yourself not to be mind and not to be body is to be free, is to be free. And in that freedom there, when you know yourself not to be the body, then you don't experience death, because you're not lying there on a deathbed thinking, oh, I'm dying. You're sitting there on the deathbed, breaking free little by little as the body slowly gives up its grip on you, and you come out of it realizing, oh my God. And every old person will tell you, even this quasi old person here will tell you that when you sit there aware of yourself, you know that you're as young as you've ever been. It's just the body doesn't work like it used to work. You can't you can't go from a standing position to a sitting square on the floor like a toddler without causing a lot of damage. But it doesn't mean you don't think about it. It doesn't mean that you wouldn't if you could, because inside, this body's going, and to watch it go is a miracle, is pure grace, because every bit of age that begins to show on the body helps you to break your attachment. Every bit of discomfort that the body gives helps you to break your attachment. And every time an attachment is broken, you get one more crack in the window for the light of truth to come in. You get one more avenue to realize that you are something so beautiful, something so much more than a trapped bird in a body, I don't want to hear people saying there's an old monk at Rasmani's temple garden. Don't say that, Mother replied, just like any good wife. Don't say that. You are not old. Oh, now she sounds like you guys. You're not old. Do you think you are old enough to leave the world? Moreover, if you live here as an old monk, people will say a wise monk lives in Rasmani's Kali garden. The master replied, Pooh, who's going to call me a wise monk? Anyhow, I can't bear it if anybody calls me an old fellow. Oh boy, wonderful.
This is extra funny considering that Swami Vivekananda's nickname for him was the Old Man.
I know, I love that. That's
That is something else.
It's fantastic. I love the fact that the only time Swamiji mentions the master and the mother in the West, he refers to him as that old man and his wife.
And he was so old, he was 49.
I know.
When he died.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah, that old man and his wife. So I've used that in a couple of pujas, actually. I figure if he puts it in the scripture, we have full right to use that reference for God and the Divine Mother. Yeah, you old man and your wife, what are you up to? Indeed. Yogan Ma recalled, Holy Mother used to live in that Nahabat like a shy bride. She wore a sari with a broad red border. Her hair was black, thick, and long, and she wore a vermilion mark on her forehead. She also wore a necklace, a nose ring, earrings, and bracelets. There's an asterisk here saying these bracelets were given by Mathur Babu to the master while he was practicing the spiritual discipline of Madhura Bhava. Her company gave me immense joy. She liked the way I braided her hair very much, and I was delighted to do it for her. There's something very, very refreshing there. Just reading that gave me some joy. Because first of all, the presence of the Divine Mother, here we have a first-hand account that the presence of the Divine Mother brings a great deal of joy. And so you should expect that in your practice, in your time with the divine, that a great sense of joy will come from that. And then the second one, that she liked the way I braided her hair very much. What an insignificant, tiny little effortless thing that somebody gave to the Divine Mother, and the Mother liked it very much. You see, so the Mother of the universe, imagine this, the Mother of the universe. You know, the small things that you do for her, if they're done with this kind of love, and it doesn't have to be that super love, you know, the the super accomplished bhava love that we read about. It could just be your best effort at love, you know, that you do something for the Divine Mother, and she loves it very much because love thrills her more than anything in the world. So any manifestation of love that you attempt or make toward the Divine Mother, you know, this person's little favor to Mother ends up in the scriptures. So it just shows you how important it is. It's the little things that you do in a day, the things that nobody else sees, the insignificant things. Those are how you give God something that she really loves. Small things. You know, a little song, a little joke, a little card, a little flower, a little piece of cookie, a big piece of cookie. This is spiritual life. And actually, in spiritual life, it is the smaller things that are the most important. You know, small things. So don't gloss over the small things. The small things make the best gifts. And Mother is the most thrilled with the little things, faithfulness in your daily practice, holding on to make it all the way through, not getting up early from your practice, you know, reading when your mind wants to do everything else in the world besides reading, you know. So these little things, make those little efforts, push for those little efforts of self-control and discipline in your life, little gifts to the divine, because they're the ones that matter, not the big ones, not what you become, not what you intend to do, not what you intend to build, not what you intend to. The intentions are not where the special is. It's in the doing, the small things in secret, where the love of God manifests. Once in the early morning, Holy Mother went to bathe in the Bakutala Ghat. There's a double asterisk here. The bathing ghat was constructed mainly for the women of Rashmani's family and the women from the neighboring villages. So one morning, early in the morning, Holy Mother went to bathe at the Bakul Talagat, which was near the Nahabat. It was still dark, so she did not notice that a crocodile was lying on one of the steps. All right, Nicole, this is right in your neck of the woods. Fortunately, at the sound of her approach, it slid into the river before she got too close. Holy Mother screamed and ran back to the Nahabad. Holy Mother's companion, Gaurima, held her, trying to comfort her, and joked, "It was not a crocodile, Mother. It was Lord Shiva. He came to touch your feet." "Set aside your fun," replied the Holy Mother. "I'm about to die of fear." "You are the embodiment of fearlessness, Mother. How can you be afraid?" said Gaurima. There you have it. bad and as small as life may get, probably, except for Nicole. Probably most of us don't have to worry about alligators going out to do our business in the morning. So
They're not so bad.
yeah, says the toddler who got eaten at Disneyland or Disney World. So, all right. Well, there's a good place to stop for tonight. If anybody has any, let me turn off the